Okay, so welcome everyone. I'd just like to do a welcome acknowledgement to country base, given I'm in Sydney, Australia. So I recognise the continuous and deep connection to country of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And I'm actually on Guringai people's land, and I back onto the bush, so that I'm in a real bush setting where I am. And they are the traditional custodians of our land. And I'd like to also recognise the ancestry that we all have come from, yeah, not only the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So welcome. Thank you for coming along. I want to share my story of going to Antarctica last November. And it was, and then I also want to connect to solution focus, because I was a leadership coach on this voyage to Antarctica, and there were 88 of us that went. And basically the history is Homeward Bound Projects is a not-for-profit or social profit, as Haysan says. And basically what it is it is an initiative for women in STEM that help them have a voice around climate change and climate action. And so this Homeward Bound Projects has been going for 8 years now, and I've been a leadership coach on it for the last 7 years. Welcome, Jane. Sorry, we got started a few seconds ago. And so, yeah, I've been a leadership coach on it, and everyone who's involved in this project gives their time. So there's no payment. It's a pro bono coaching arrangement. And also every organisation who's connected to it have either donated clothes, so if we could go to Antarctica, but also any of the tools that are used, which one is the lifestyles inventory and another is the Global Leadership Wellbeing Survey. They gift those to the people as well. So it's a wonderful initiative, and the aim is to get 10,000 women around the world in STEM through this leadership initiative by 2036. And at this stage, there's 800 women have been through the program. So the story is, I've been a leadership coach on this program, and last year there were 2 voyages going to Antarctica. So what it is that it's a year-long leadership initiative that helps women in STEM learn about leadership, well-being, climate action and climate change, and finding your voice. Because these women in STEM, so science, technology, engineering, maths, and medicine, many of them are, half of the who went with a scientist, and many of them don't get access to leadership development. And so that's what this initiative's trying to do, is actually develop the leadership capability, but also finding your voice around climate action, so that these women can go back to their local communities and have projects around, influencing around climate action. So I was lucky enough to go because there were some spare spaces on the ship, because they couldn't fill it because over COVID, there were no voyages. So it was sort of like a backlog of voyages going. And we went for 3 weeks, and there was 88 of us went on a ship, and it wasn't a tourist ship, cruise ship, it was a science research ship. So it was quite small. And so when we were walking along the, what do you call it, to get onto the ship? What's it called? Wharf, to get onto the ship. On the left was this beautiful big ocean liner. And on the right was our tiny little science research ship. So that actually added to the adventure, because going to Antarctica has been on my bucket list for a long time. But to do it in this way, being a leadership program as well, that made it even richer experience. So I am going to show a few slides because I can't not show you pictures of Antarctica, because, it's just left such a deep impact on me on a number of levels, but particularly around what can I do about climate action from where I sit, in my local community. So this talk is about what lessons I learned. But I also had this aim when I was there of how I could introduce solution focus in a very subtle way with these 88 women. So you can imagine, when you've got so many scientists in the room, there's a lot of problem focused thinking. Yeah. So I was finding a way I could just subtly introduce solution focus. And what ended up happening is, a week before I went, I got introduced to Giza lives in the Netherlands, and she has a game, a solution focused game. And it was only 6 days before I was flying out that I met her, and she said, I want you to take my game to Antarctica. So she couriered the game to me so I could play. So as it turned out, I got to play the game with 66 of the 88 were there. So yes, I can finish off that part of the story a bit later. So yeah, I'm going to be looking at, even though it wasn't a project in terms of how I applied solution focus, it was in a sense, but it was in an incognito way. So I was subtly trying to bring it in, because I wasn't part of the faculty who was delivering the program. I was considered a participant. So it was a very new position for me to be in, receiving the training and leadership development, compared to actually running the show normally. So I had to do it subtly. So I want to share with you how I did that. So a bit of a context of who was there: 88 women, non-binary people, 19 countries, ages were from 25 to 76. 32 of those were Australian, 13 from the US and Canada, 8 European, 9 Spanish speaking, 5. And why I separate them out is because where did the cliques start to happen? Where would the subgroups start to happen? And I noticed there was a real Spanish speaking, whether they were from South America or European. They were a group. Then there was a UK people, 4 New Zealanders, 2 Chinese, 1 Kenyan, and 1 South American. And what I loved about this initiative, it was people ranging from 25-year-olds to 76. So it was all career stages. And so when you look at this group, on one level, you just see women, but actually there's so many differences that you see, not only from the different nationalities, but different fields of work that they were doing as well. So one of the things that I really learned about was around leadership and inclusion, and how do you actually create an environment where everyone feels like they belong and included. And I think the faculty did this in a really thorough way, because we were spending 19 days together and there was nowhere to hide, but nowhere to get privacy. because even in the cabins, you were sharing a cabin with 2 different people. So half the voyage we had one person to share with, and then we swap rooms to another person. So you had nowhere to have your own downtime at all. So it was really thoroughly done in terms of how do we help meet everyone's needs, and many diverse needs there were. So not only on nationality, there was neurodiverse people, there was people with children, without children, different cultural views. And the aim was to have no cliques, that everyone felt like that they belonged and felt part of it. So I want to start with you first, and then I'll go into explaining. When have you felt most included and felt like you belonged in a work context? Yeah. How come? What was done to enable you to feel like you really belonged? And I'm just going to stop sharing because I'd love to know what has worked. Yeah. So given we're 16 of us, put it in the chat. What's the one thing that happened to enable you to feel like you actually belonged? What was that? Just put that one thing in the chat. What was it that happened that enabled you to go, yeah, I really fit here? What was it? How did that actually happen? And while you're doing that, you know, I'm an ocean swimmer, and I'm a part of an ocean swim community. And why I feel so connected to that community is we met through a charity where we were raising money for cancer research, and we were trained to be ocean swimmers. So I think what helped us feel like we belonged, we were all doing something for a greater cause, and that helped connect us pretty quickly. Plus, some people had some experience with cancer, and so that felt like we're all in it for a good cause. Yeah. So let me see some of the things that you're saying in terms of how you felt belong. DT, you've said various team-related activities that created a deep sense of belonging. Beautiful. Theo, you've said making time, space to talk, chat, and relate. Yes. Miriam, you said everyone was valued for their passions and interests. Yes, and I will explain how we connected to people's passions and interests, because there was a way we did that. Shared philosophy, yes. Yep. Thank you, Jane, around SF. Trudy, you said establishing group norms. Yes, and I'm going to be talking about that, Trudy, of how that happened over a few conversations, because it didn't just happen in one conversation. It was over a few days that we came up with what the group norms were. Dee Dee, you said being part of a cycling group. Nice. Yes, yeah, it's connected to an activity that you all do together. Nice. Janet, you've said high intensity task focused work. Yes. Yeah, where the individual was subsumed by the team. Yes. Yeah. And Lucy, you said shared experience in my science work and personally as part of the Cancer Support Network. Beautiful. So let me share with you how we actually did it. How we felt connected. And you know, this has been really made me think about how do I do this with groups I work with. So let's have a look. This was the most amazing scene, seeing a cupcake iceberg. And it was such a unique thing that suddenly, and that was like the size of 5-story building. that's cupcake. But just out of nowhere, it was like, oh my God. So how do we actually create inclusion? So what worked? Let me just move my image. We ended up, from a series of about 3 or 4 conversations, came up with these group norms, and they worked beautifully throughout the whole 19 days we were together. So let me lead you through it. One was around being compassionate. And if you think about, one of the worst seas in the world is called the Drake's Passage. And we left from Argentina to go to the Antarctic Peninsula. And it's the worst sea in the world because it's called the convergence. It's where 2 oceans meet together, the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean. So there's a lot of rough water that happens there. We were lucky when we went across, it wasn't too bad. It was like a 5 out of 10. But even so, a lot of people got seasick. So there needed to be some compassion around who could turn up to workshops. So basically the structure was half the day was workshop and integrating some of the learning the participants done over the year leadership program. But if you couldn't turn up because you're not well, that's okay. But please, the person who's sharing the room with them, check on them, see if they need food, take food to them. So we wanted this, community of being compassionate. Respect, and that, as you can see underneath each of these key headings, is what that actually means. So the respect was, on a whole range of levels, but, making sure that you respect people's different viewpoints from where they sit, that, respecting the wildlife. So when we went onto Zodiacs to go onto land, we had to actually have our boots disinfected. We had to make sure when we took our clothes to Antarctica, they were vacuumed to make sure there was no germs that were going. So it was respecting the environment, the staff, everyone who was there. Language awareness was around, because there were 32 Australians, we could easily go into using common language in Australia, and which mightn't have been understood. And one of the ones that everyone laughed at was having your ducks in a row. Like, other countries were going, what does that actually mean? So it was having a radar out. If we use some language that was more some groups understood and others didn't, have an ear out to go, hang on a sec, can we just pause and explain what we mean by that? Inclusivity was a whole range of things, but we did a lot of work on, what helps you feel like you're part of things. And, on that, it was, different cultural practices we honored. And so I can't even remember the word for Indian celebration. Vahali, I can't even remember what the name of it. Anyway, we celebrated that on the ship. Then there was the spaces. Because it was a small ship, there wasn't anywhere to get away from people. We actually made dedicated places that were quiet zones or reflective zones of things. And so all these norms actually helped to create this environment where we felt like one. Because the people who were on the ship were coming from different cohorts who had been through the program. There was what was called Homeward Bound 5. So they went through the program in 2019. There was Homeward Bound 6. There was Homeward Bound 7. And then what I was an invited guest. So it would have been easy for cliques to form, but what was really focused on was how do we help everyone feel like the one group, and that's why we were named the Homeward Bound Ushuaia, HB Ushuaia, which was the name of the ship. So here's some other ways that upon reflection, I went, wow, that worked really well to help people feel included. In the middle, what was created, and it was the idea from one of the participants, was these amazing playing cards that had everyone on them. So we completed them ourselves, and they're like Pokemon cards. And what happened is you had to complete it yourself and then send it off, and they made these cards. So what was great, because we had breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 19 days on the ship, you could go through the cards and go, right, who haven't I met yet? Who would I like to have a meal with so I could get to know more? And you could have a snapshot of who that person was. So there was their characteristics, strengths, qualifications, and down the bottom was where they were located. So you had a sense of who that person was before you actually had a meal. The other was, we had what was called reflection buddies. So you would pair up with someone that you could then meet once a day of going, so what have you learnt today? What's striking a chord for you today? And that happened on a regular basis daily. We had our room buddy, and I had two. My first room buddy was from Canada. My second room buddy was from America, from Chicago, I think it was. And so that was another person that you could feel like you could share what was happening for you. The other was a home group, and the home group was 8 people. We haven't got all in the photo there, but 8 people that you would meet daily, and you could decide when in the day that you met. And we would meet at 8 o'clock every morning, and it was a well-being check. How are you faring today? How's your seasickness today? And what happened? A flu cold went right through the ship. So, you know, each day someone else would come down to it. But it was really nice that this group was our well-being check-in group. Then the other thing is the actual structure of the learning was basically divided up into 3. So a third of the time was for faculty-led. Then the middle section was participant-led. So it was basically using the expertise of each of the participants who wanted to offer a session. So there were sessions on, you know, the marine life in Antarctica, because someone is doing their PhD on that. There was environmental climate change scientists. So we got sessions on that. So this was a bit of an open space type structure where each morning it was people were offering what they could present that day, and then it got voted on, you know, how we're going to do it. So I love that co-creation of the actual learning wasn't all just led by the experts or the facilitators. It was actually led by the participants as well. So that actually helped people feel really valued for what they bring in their expertise. I think I've covered off most. The other I haven't mentioned there is, on the opening day, the person who was standing to our right and our left, we were to check whether they'd turned up for sessions each day. So 88 of us were in this round circle on the day 1 before we actually left Ushuaia onto the ship. And we had to look out for that person on the right and the left, making sure that, you know, did we see them show up for that workshop session. And if they weren't there, their room buddy was, to go check that they're okay, So another layer of how do you feel like you belong to this group? So all these different ways, I was just blown away of what ended up happening after the ship, because we now have a WhatsApp group with 80 of us on there. And it's like we instantly know each other. It's a brains trust. And you can actually put on the WhatsApp, I need research on this. Who's got that? And instantly you'll get this article, attached. And the thing that really blew me away was one time one of the women, younger women, finished her PhD, was presenting at a conference after the voyage and put in the WhatsApp group, hey sisters, because that's what everyone calls each other now. I'm in my hotel room really upset because I was presenting my research findings of my PhD at a conference, and this person ridiculed me and humiliated me in front of the group, going, I think you're all wrong. I think your research is wrong, in front of the whole conference. So she was now in her hotel room, really upset, going, I don't feel like I can go back. What really impacted me was watching 24 hours, because that, as everyone woke up to this message, the beautiful comments that went on the WhatsApp about her and her capability. She's actually someone who's written 17 science fiction books. And so she's really capable. And it was only from all these beautiful comments she felt she could go back the next day to the conference. And we were so pleased she did, because what ended up happening, she got invited on to the dignitaries table, the most important people at that conference table at the dinner, and she got invited onto a board. And that helped me realize the power of having a support network. And it was only because of that time we spent together and all these different processes of helping people feel like they belong and connected that this happened afterwards, because no one's really dropped off this WhatsApp group. They're still there 5 months later, still supporting each other. So yes, amazing experience. So where does solution focus fit in? So I got the opportunity, at that time, where you may recall I said that was co-created, where it was participant-led, the sessions, I offered a session, come and play this solution focus game and find out a bit about what solution focus is all about. Well, it was interesting because first up, I got 16 people who came to play. And then afterwards, I'd get requests at meal times saying, can you play that game again? I heard some really good things about it. So it was a bit like Chinese whispers. I didn't have to be in their face saying, I'm going to do this, but it was a bit like word of mouth. People started going, there's something in this game, So this is what the game looks like. Some of you may have seen it already or played it, but it's an awesome way to introduce solution focus with people who know nothing about it. So basically how it works, and I was lucky enough to be able to use it a few weeks ago in the Solution Focus Unconference that was held in the Netherlands with Pout. I can't remember her name. Stuart. Yeah. We did it again at that session, and it's a brilliant game because you don't have to talk about solution focus. They learn it through answering questions, and thinking about their goal. So what I have brought home is a bit like what I said then about the WhatsApp group. And what also I've brought home is one of the last parts of the voyage was we formed collaborative groups that could work on projects after the ship. So I'm on a project which is helping women in STEM move into leadership, because what I know from what we were talking about on the ship is many of these STEM fields are low rates of women in leadership. And I know I do a lot of work in the construction industry, and there's actually only 12% of the whole workforce are women. So getting into leadership in construction is a lot harder because of, we're starting at a low base. So yeah, I'm part of this group. And so there's 10 of us from all different countries working on one project. And that's what was really lovely about, it was integrating the learning into a project afterwards, which it's been great. And then as it turned out, after the ship, more people reached out saying, oh, there's something in this solution focus. Can you run a few more game sessions? So I did a few games online on Zoom. So out of this 88, 66 of them have experienced what solution focus is all about, which is, I suddenly got there. So I'm curious for you, if you were in my situation, how would you integrate solution focus? What would have been ways that you could have done it in terms of introducing solution focus into a context where you know nothing about it and you were not the lead role in it? So you are one of the participants. Yeah. So how would you do it? What's resonated with you around this? Or have you got an example of how you've done it in a context where you haven't been in the lead role, that you've been able to introduce solution focus? Trudy.
I haven't got an answer for you, Annette, and I guess it's just an affirmation that I love the whole game concept to do that, to achieve that. It was kind of serendipitous too, because you only sort of stumbled on the game, did I understand, about 6 days beforehand. So it's just the most amazing solution to teach SF in a you could just, it's just the perfect solution. Like you can just imagine 88 women on a ship, confined space, going a bit stir crazy, so to be able to engage in a game, one in itself, like any game, would be fun and a break from challenging life. Yeah, but then to be able to bring them to understanding this way of being and thinking and, seeing the world and tackling problems, particularly in STEM, like just genius. So if I have to do it, I'm going to ring you, Annette, and get that game. That's my answer.
Yeah, or Giza actually sells them. Yeah, she's in the Netherlands. And, I only had the smaller version. There is bigger floor versions as well. Miriam, are you there? You've got your hand up. Oh, I might go to you, John, since you've got your hand up too. Go, John.
You sure Miriam didn't want to go first? Miriam was up first. I don't know if she's still there.
I'm not sure. She might have had to duck out.
I'm here. I'm sorry. I am here. I'm just cooking my lunch at the same time. I'm listening very intently. I'm just trying to feed myself as well.
All right.
My thought was, I just wanted to share the one thing that I've done with the leaders is that I've actually showed them Hasten's quadrant sometimes as a way of showing them. And I don't usually necessarily mention solution focus. I just tell them about this as a way that you can think about the conversations that you're having with your staff members.
Yes.
So that's a thought.
Yes, actually, and I did share that with them as well. And I was doing the online sessions. I actually started with that, this is how we navigate these conversations, and it's, really helpful as well. Yeah. Thank you. John, over to you.
Yeah, and I was just reflecting when you were talking about the pack of cards, which I really liked, I must admit, that initiative. That was really a kind of SF approach to safety. You were all in a fairly dangerous environment, in an unfamiliar environment for most, I would think, being on board a ship. You're in Antarctica, it's cold. If you fall overboard, it's pretty catastrophic. So they could have actually just given you lots and lots of safety briefs about, these are all the problems, this is what might happen. By using that card system, in essence, it sent the message, how do we look after each other? And if we all look after each other, then nobody will get confronted by one of the problems, i.e. falling overboard or doing anything like that. So I was, just as you were going through it, I thought, I really like that. That's a great way of approaching safety. And you could kind of do that in a company, and whether it's in a dangerous environment like the building sector or something like that, how do we look at, what do we put in place that ensures that we look after each other all day? So, I was just, it's interesting because you kind of put by introducing the game, you put another layer of solution focus into their thought processes. But to me, there was even though they probably didn't know it, there was some solution focus at work already on the ship by the organisers. So it was really interesting. I love that. I love those cards, by the way. I think that would be a really good way for people
they are
in
so
companies
good.
to get to know each other a little bit better as well.
Yes, given they didn't know solution focus, there was all these things that were put in place in terms of helping the interaction, helping the interaction go well. Also, other comments, insights,
Annette,
queries?
I know you a little bit, but I think the way that you've conducted yourself would have been a very SF way. And I think that's a subtle way of, the listen, select and build, and asking different questions, different comments. So sometimes if you don't have the platform, you have the opportunity with individual conversations. And I'm sure that people would have noticed quite a significant different language or different approach that you would have taken.
Yes. Funny you should say that, Dieter, because I did end up doing a lot of coaching sessions on the ship, walking, coaching around the ship we kept doing. Yeah. So just being SF, can be an attraction to people. Yeah. So my other question is, what did you notice worked in helping people feel they belonged? What resonated with you? John's already mentioned about the cards, but what resonated with you around the approach that was taken?
I thought it was quite significant, Annette, in the way that they had different formats. So you had it in pairs, you slept in the same room, but you also then had your buddies, but you also had different groupings. And so the power of connecting at different levels in different ways, at different times with a different purpose is, if you're together in a confined space, you kind of have to kind of connect, but to have that facilitated would have meant that it would have accelerated the learning, the sense of belonging and the growth at a significant speed.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And you just reminded me of, you know, just because all those things were put into place didn't mean there wasn't going to be any conflict or any disagreements. Those things came up as well. But it was like it was safe to lean into that because of the way it had been set up. And it was like leadership being practiced in action, you know. We're talking about and learning about leadership, but then these things that pop up that we've got to actually reconcile or deal with and not leave it up to the faculty to look after. So there was these action learning moments of applying what you're learning straight away, you know. And one of the topics was around when we were in the workshop room, it got really hot because it wasn't that big for 88 people to be in. So one of the strategies was opening the back door. And you could imagine there's this blast of cold air that comes in. So people are sitting near the back door had to put their big down jackets on, and so that we could equalize the level of oxygen and everything. And then there was one person who was quite what's the word, her immune system was really down, and so we had to really watch the level of oxygen levels for her as well. But the way it was addressed was problem focused. And it wasn't until they played the game I said, so if you had that topic again, how would you deal with it in a solution focused way? Because the whole thing was looking at the root cause of how come the oxygen levels are, you know, going to the wrong amount and we're all falling asleep or we're all getting sick, you know, rather than looking at the root cause. It's like, so when have we got it right, you know? And the solution ended up being not opening the door full, but having a little gap, you know, and that someone monitored that, you know, and that just you'd keep the door shut and then open it for a little, you know, it was open about 10 centimeters, and that solved it. But if it was looked at in an SF way around what is it we want everyone to feel like they're safe and alert and staying awake, rather than how come this is a problem. Yeah. So it was great to see that mindset shift just through playing the game. They will go, oh, okay, how would we have done it differently if it was to be more solution focused? Yes. Okay, thanks, Miriam. I just saw her message. So let me bring my slides up again. I have a question for you there, and then I might pop you in at breakouts. So one of the things that I've come away with is, you know, given seeing Antarctica firsthand and hearing about how it's melting, and apparently all our weather systems come from Antarctica. So if climate is changing in Antarctica, it's going to have a ripple effect around the world. And so it made me come away going, well, we need to be able to create more respectful, inclusive, and sustainable world. How do we do that? And how can we help SF do that? You know, because I think there's something in it that SF, and having been to this recent conference in the Netherlands, there's something special about this community, of how we respect and take notice of people's strengths and qualities and what people bring. How do we bring this broader you know, to this issue around climate change? How do we actually do that? So I want to put you in breakouts to maybe just have, how's our timing? If I put you in there for 5 minutes, how do you think we can do this to have more of a ripple effect around these big complex issues that the world's facing at the moment? How might we do this? Just let me stop sharing. Can't see the share button. So is that okay if I put you in breakouts for a brief chat around how might we do that? And you'll be in 2s and 3s. How can we use SF to create a more respectful, inclusive, and sustainable world? Just press the open room button. Cool. No? You're on mute.
I didn't want to go into a room. I just wanted to be here to listen. So I thought I shouldn't join a room, but it let me not join a room, which is good to know.
Just let me pause the recording.
I didn't want to cause any trouble. Got rid of the sign. I pressed.
So I'm curious your insights in how do we help the world have more SF and create this more respectful, inclusive and sustainable world. What were your insights? I might go you, Jane, since you're off mute.
Okay. Well, I was showing, I think SF has a huge amount to offer the conversation, just in terms of a sense of hope, rather than just getting depressed by all the news, which is obviously all negative focused. A sense of empowering people that we can all do, you know, take small steps and be in this together. So I feel like it has a lot to offer. And I was just sharing from a personal point of view. Now my kids are getting older, I feel like I would like to use my SF skills rather than just helping individuals or teams. None of them have talked about environment with me. I don't bring it up. So I feel like, how do I get in front of people that want to have this conversation that I can make a difference with? So that's what I'm grappling with. I feel like the framework has an amazing amount to offer, but how do I personally, who do I tap into? And then I met 2 wonderful people in my breakout room who work in this space. So
Was that you can handball them to them? Who were you with, Jane?
Thea and Lucy. So Thea was saying she's an environmental educator, so you know she's in that space and learning about SF, which is fantastic.
Okay, other thoughts? How can we sort of have this SF ripple effect in terms of what's going on in the world at the moment? Thea, would you like to comment, given you're brand new to SF?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really hard for me to say, like speak from an SF lens, because I really don't know anything except it's coming from that solutions focus. So and I was just saying to Jane that, like, especially in the field I work in, traditionally for a lot of people, it is it's a problem focused field. Like, we traditionally have focused on the issues, and focusing on the issues is important to a certain extent, because people, one, need to know there's an issue, and two, they need to know how to resolve the issue if the answer is there. But we know a lot of these wicked problems, the answer isn't there, or it's not as clear as we think it is. So I was just saying to Jane, yeah, like getting into fields that traditionally have focused on the kind of problems and targeting them as your audience, that would be a really great way for her to start. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm always debating and challenging people who are always wanting to focus on issues-based learning, education.
Yeah.
I work a lot in nature connectedness, which is probably inherently a very solution focused, because it's all about developing this wonderful relationship with the natural world. So it kind of takes making kinds to help people to build a positive relationship, which hopefully empowers them to figure out how they can behave and live differently on the planet. So yeah.
Nice. Thank you. One of the things that I learned on the ship was this, I'm not sure if others are aware of it, it's called One Health. And the focus is on if we can help with human health and help raise the level of well-being of human health, that's going to impact animal health and it'll impact environmental health. And the big focus is on if we could all just become flexitarians. So it means that one day a week we just eat, be a vegetarian. That's actually going to have a ripple effect in terms of having to farm to have more meat, and it's going to have an impact on the environment. So I love that concept, being a flexitarian. So you don't have to go all in being a vegetarian, but just do it one day a week. If everyone in the world did it just one day a week, that would mean we wouldn't have to farm as many animals to feed the world, because we haven't got enough land to keep farming to feed the world to be meat eaters. So I just went, wow, that's simple. We could try that. I've even gone further and having every second day being a vegetarian. But just these little snippets and nuggets of easy things that we can do in our local level, around it. Any other insights, comments that you would like to make that you could possibly do to help the world be more SF? Dieter.
John started it, and I agree that John comes from the aviation and I come from the motor industry, and it's very much root cause analysis, problem solving. So, and like Thea said, there's a real value in that. But I think in this case, changing the conversation and using the dialogic orientation quadrant in terms of what do you want more of, what do you want less of, and focusing on the future. So I think, how can we change the conversations, again, one person at a time, or wherever we are in whatever environment it is, rather than doing the blaming and the political, making it political, kind of what can we each do to have a more positive solution-focused approach, I think could make a difference.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Dieter. Well, thank you for coming along. I realise we're right on time now. I love talking about Antarctica. We'll be talking about it for a long time. So thank you for coming along. I appreciate the interaction. Thanks.
Thanks, Annette.
Thanks, Annette. Very inspiring.
Thanks, Annette. Great session. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.